Genesis chapter 22, verse 3 through verse 10. Abraham's obedience. BC 1872. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and went unto the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. We have here Abraham's obedience to this severe command being tried. He offered up Isaac. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 17. Observe the difficulties which he broke through in this act of obedience. Much might have been objected against it. As 1, it seemed directly against an antecedent law of God which forbids murder under a severe penalty. Genesis chapter 9 verse 5 and verse 6. Now, can the unchangeable God contradict himself? He that hates robbery for burnt offering, Isaiah chapter 61, verse 8, cannot delight in murder for it too. How would it consist with natural affection to his own son? It would be not only murder, but the worst of murders. Cannot Abraham be obedient, but he must be unnatural? If God insists upon a human sacrifice, is there none but Isaac to be the offering, and none but Abraham to be the offerer? Must the father of the faithful be the monster of all fathers? 3. God gave him no reason for it. When Ishmael was to be cast out, a just cause was assigned which satisfied Abraham. But here Isaac must die, and Abraham must kill him, and neither the one nor the other must know why or wherefore. If Isaac had been to die a martyr for the truth, or his life had been the ransom of some other life more precious, it would have been another matter of if he had died as a criminal, a rebel against God or his parents, as in the case of the idolater. Deuteronomy chapter 13 verse 8 and verse 9, or the stubborn son. Genesis chapter 21 verse 18 and verse 19. It might have passed as a sacrifice to justice, but the case is not so. He is dutiful, obedient, hopeful son. Lord, what profit is there in his blood? 4. How would this consist with the promise? Was it not said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called? But what comes of that seed, if this pregnant bud be broken off so soon? 5. How should he ever look Sarah in the face again? With what face can he return to her, and his family with the blood of Isaac sprinkled on his garments, and staining all his raiment? Surely, a bloody husband hast thou been to me. Would Sarah say, as Exodus chapter 4, verse 25 and verse 26, and it would be likely to alienate her affections forever both from him and from his gods. 6. What would the Egyptians say, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites who dwelt then in the land? It would be an eternal reproach to Abraham and to his altars. Welcome nature, if this be grace. These and many similar objections might have been made, but he was infallibly assured that it was indeed a command of God and not a delusion, and this was sufficient to answer them all. Note, God's commands must not be disputed, but obeyed. We must not consult with flesh and blood about them. Galatians chapter 1, verse 15 and verse 16. But with a gracious obstinacy persist in our obedience to them.
the several steps of obedience, all which helped to magnify it, and to show that he was guided by prudence and governed by faith in the whole transaction. 1. He rises early. Verse 3, probably the command was given in the visions of the night, and early the next morning he set himself about the execution of it. Did not delay, did not demur, did not take time to deliberate, for the command was peremptory, and would not admit a debate.
Note: those that do the will of God heartily will do it speedily. While we delay, time is lost and the heart hardened. 2. He gets things ready for a sacrifice, and as if he himself had been a Gibeonite, it should seem, with his own hands he cleaves the wood for the burnt offering, that it might not be to seek when the sacrifice was to be offered. Spiritual sacrifices must thus be prepared for. 3. It is very probable that he said nothing about it to Sarah. This is a journey which she must know nothing of, lest she prevent it. There is so much in our own hearts to hinder our progress in duty that we have need, as much as may be, to keep out of the way of other hindrances. 4. He carefully looked about him to discover the place appointed for this sacrifice, to which God had promised by some sign to direct him. Probably the direction was given by an appearance of the divine glory in the place, some pillar of fire reaching from heaven to earth, visible at a distance, and to which he pointed when he said, verse 5, "We will go yonder, where you see the light, and worship." 5. He left his servants at some distance off, verse 5, lest they should interpose and create him some disturbance in his strange oblation. For Isaac was, no doubt, the darling of the whole family. Thus, when Christ was entering upon his agony in the garden, he took only 3 of his disciples with him and left the rest at the garden door. Note: it is our wisdom and duty, when we are going to worship God, to lay aside all those thoughts and cares which may divert us from the service, leave them at the bottom of the hill, that we may attend on the Lord without distraction. 6. He obliged Isaac to carry the wood, both to try his obedience in a smaller matter first, and that he might typify Christ, who carried his own cross, John chapter 19, verse 17, while he himself, though he knew what he did, with a steady and undaunted resolution, carried the fatal knife and fire. Verse 6. Note: those that through grace are resolved upon the substance of any service or suffering for God must overlook the little circumstances which make it doubly difficult to flesh and blood. Seven. Without any ruffle or disorder, he talks it over with Isaac, as if it had been but a common sacrifice that he was going to offer. Genesis chapter 22, verse 7 and verse 8. 1. It was a very affecting question that Isaac asked him as they were going together. "My father," said Isaac. It was a melting word which, one would think, would strike deeper into the breast of Abraham than his knife could into the breast of Isaac. He might have said, or thought at least, "Call me not thy father, who am now to be thy murderer." Can a father be so barbarous, so perfectly lost to all the tenderness of a father? Yet he keeps his temper and keeps his countenance to admiration. He calmly waits for his son's question, and this is it. "Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb?" See how expert Isaac was in the law and custom of sacrifices. This it is to be well catechized. This is, 1, a trying question to Abraham. How could he endure to think that Isaac was himself the lamb? So it is, but Abraham as yet dares not tell him so. Where God knows the faith to be armor of proof, he will laugh at the trial of the innocent. Job chapter 9, verse 23-2. It is a teaching question to us all that, when we are going to worship God, we should seriously consider whether we have everything ready, especially the lamb for a burnt offering. Behold, the fire is ready, the Spirit's assistance and God's acceptance. The wood is ready, the instituted ordinances designed to kindle our affections, which indeed without the Spirit are but like wood without fire, but the Spirit works by them. All things are now ready, but where is the Lamb? Where is the heart? Is that ready to be offered up to God, to ascend to Him as a burnt offering? 2. It was a very prudent answer which Abraham gave him. My son, God will provide Himself a lamb. This was the language either, 1, of his obedience. We must offer the lamb which God has appointed now to be offered, thus giving him this general rule of submission to the divine will, to prepare him for the application of it to himself very quickly. Or 2, of his faith, whether he meant it so or not. This proved to be the meaning of it. A sacrifice was provided instead of Isaac thus. First, Christ, the great sacrifice of atonement, was of God's providing, when none in heaven or earth could have found a lamb for that burnt offering. God Himself found the ransom. Psalms chapter 89, verse 20. Secondly, all our sacrifices of acknowledgement are of God's providing too. It is He that prepares the heart. Psalms chapter 10, verse 17. The broken and contrite spirit is a sacrifice of God. Psalms chapter 51, verse 17, of His providing. Eight. With the same resolution and composedness of mind, after many thoughts of heart, he applies himself to the completing of this sacrifice. Genesis chapter 22, verse 9 and verse 10. He goes on with a holy willfulness after many a weary step, and with a heavy heart he arrives at length at the fatal place, builds the altar. An altar of earth, we may suppose, the saddest that ever he built, and he had built many a one. Lays the wood in order for his Isaac's funeral pile, and now tells him the amazing news. Isaac, thou art the lamb which God has provided. Isaac, for aught that appears, is as willing as Abraham. We do not find that he raised any objection against it, that he petitioned for his life, that he attempted to make his escape, much less that he struggled with his aged father, or made any resistance. Abraham does it, God will have it done, and Isaac has learnt to submit to both, Abraham no doubt comforting him with the same hopes with which he himself by faith was comforted. Yet it is necessary that a sacrifice be bound. The great sacrifice, which in the fullness of time was to be offered up, must be bound, and therefore so must Isaac. But with what heart could tender Abraham tie those guiltless hands, which perhaps had often been lifted up to ask his blessing, and stretched out to embrace him, and were now the more straitly bound with the cords of love and duty. However, it must be done. Having bound him, he lays him upon the altar, and his hand upon the head of his sacrifice. And now, we may suppose, with floods of tears he gives and takes the final farewell of a parting kiss. Perhaps he takes another for Sarah from her dying son. This being done, he resolutely forgets the bowels of a father, and puts on the awful gravity of a sacrificer. With a fixed heart and an eye lifted up to heaven, he takes the knife and stretches out his hand to give a fatal cut to Isaac's throat. Be astonished, O heavens, at this, and wonder, O earth. Here is an act of faith and obedience which deserves to be a spectacle to God, angels, and men. Abraham's darling, Sarah's laughter, the church's hope, the heir of promise, lies ready to bleed and die by his own Father's hand, who never shrinks at the doing of it. Now this obedience of Abraham in offering up Isaac is a lively representation, one of the love of God to us, in delivering up his only begotten Son to suffer and die for us as a sacrifice. It pleased the Lord himself to bruise him. See Isaiah chapter 53, verse 10, and Zechariah chapter 13, verse 7. Abraham was obliged, both in duty and gratitude, to part with Isaac, and parted with him to a friend. But God was under no obligations to us, for we were enemies. 2. Of our duty to God, in return for that love. We must tread in the steps of this faith of Abraham. God, by his word, calls us to part with all for Christ, all our sins, though they have been as a right hand, or a right eye, or an Isaac, all those things that are competitors and rivals with Christ for the sovereignty of the heart. Luke chapter 14, verse 26. And we must cheerfully let them all go. God, by his providence, which is truly the voice of God, calls us to part with an Isaac sometimes, and we must do it with a cheerful resignation and submission to his holy will. 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 18.